Hello everyone, and welcome back to today's video. Today is going to be a bit of a follow-up video to one of my earlier videos in which I talked about Minecraft Peaceful Mode and why Peaceful Mode is so unsettling. Today we're going to be discussing liminal spaces through the lens of Minecraft. So before we talk about liminal spaces from the perspective and in the context of Minecraft, let me explain a little bit what are liminal spaces. So liminal spaces by definition are transitionary spaces which appear eerie due to the lack of people or context associated with them. So for example, picture a mall. When you think of a mall, you think of people. You think of noises, you think of children screaming, people walking, footsteps, and all that. A liminal space would be an empty mall. In fact, I'm sure you've all experienced this at some point where you've been somewhere at a point of the day when it is empty compared to when you're usually there. For example, I think the most common one would be school. Have you ever been in school after hours when it's completely empty? Always empty, lockers left open, and all that. That is by definition a liminal space. So the reason I wanted to talk about this from the perspective of Minecraft is because I frankly find liminal spaces quite interesting, and I think the psychology behind them is also quite appealing to me, and I think it's something which people haven't discussed as much as they should have in detail. So I hope you all enjoy today's video, and let's get into it. So Minecraft, by its nature and by nature of the way that the world generates, in my opinion, can be quite liminal. I think this is best experienced after you've finished a build. For example, I think building office towers, building skyscrapers, building large houses is a very common theme of building within the game. However, something which you'll always notice is that after you're done building it, I'm sure everyone has felt like this is empty. It doesn't matter how much interior detail you put, it doesn't matter what furniture mods you use, the places that you build, the structures that you occupy will always feel empty, as if they shouldn't be empty. And this is also quite common on multiplayer servers. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but before that, let me go back to my original point of the nature of the game promoting this sort of liminality, this feeling that maybe you aren't the first person to touch this world. I think this is best explained and experienced through the structures of the game, as I mentioned, particularly ones like ruined nether portals, the end city, and even simpler structures like villages. You might ask, how is that so? But the thing is, Minecraft by its nature is a game which promotes theory crafting. This is something which I have touched upon in other videos, but as I have said, and as I'm sure a lot of people in this community have experienced, especially with, big channels such as Game Theory, Minecraft promotes a lot of theory crafting. And it is human nature to seek answers for things which are inherently mysterious or things which might not be obvious at face value. And the reason that this ties in so well with liminality is that you can create whatever headcanon you want for the world that you're in. And for people who are more creatively active and for people who have more vivid imaginations, this opens the door to very liminal feelings regarding the game. So let me give you an example by what I mean by that. If you're walking around a world and you stumble across an abandoned village, in game, mechanically, the abandoned village represents a village which was overrun by zombies. Quite simple. But the way I play the game, when I see an abandoned village, which is quite rare, or even if I see a normal village, I tend to ask myself questions. Am I the first person here? What happened here before me? And what will happen here after me? This is also a common feeling I get when I run into ruined nether portals or into mansions. The structures of Minecraft and the way that they're built and dotted around the world all add to a greater mystery which the player wants to answer and which the player wants to build upon through storytelling. This is a topic, if you want to hear more about the storytelling of Minecraft and the evolution of Minecraft world, I've recently uploaded a video, so go and check that out. But from the perspective of liminality, Minecraft promotes this quite heavily. Because the thing is, when we build our structures, when we explore our world, we all feel that sense of emptiness. We all feel like I wish I could do something to occupy this world. And I think that's why NPC mods or mods which, make villagers better, which add interactive villagers such as Minecraft Comes Alive are popular because they give life to a world which would feel creepy otherwise. And if you have experienced this, please do let me know down in the comment section. But I think this is a very major part of why we feel that way in our single player Minecraft worlds and why Minecraft's liminality is so effective. Now, let me talk a little bit about multiplayer servers. Now, obviously, on multiplayer servers, when everyone is online, when you're playing with your mates, you don't feel that sense of liminality, you don't feel that sense of uneasiness, because why would you? You're playing with people, you're distracted, you're probably focusing on other stuff. But if you are on the server and say the hub of your server when no one is on, or if you pass through a market which you all have built where you're selling items when no one is on the server, that feeling of uneasiness, that feeling of liminality starts to creep back in. Because, as with the real life phenomena of liminal spaces, in Minecraft you get the same thing. Because to yourself, you're thinking, this space is too empty, this space is too quiet. Why am I the only one here? And who was here before me? And with the way I think, I also think who was here after me or who will be here after me because I think what experiences have other players have where I stand right now. And to me, I find that to be a very fascinating way of looking at the game. And if that is the case for anyone else, I would also not be surprised because for people like me and for I'm sure a lot of other people who look at this game through a very storyteller-esque lens, I think this feeling of liminality and this feeling of unease that the game and the gameplay brings is very common. So now that I've talked about liminality through the perspective of Minecraft, let me elaborate a little bit more on the theory crafting side of things. So what I mean by when I say that Minecraft's theory crafting invites liminality is simply the fact that when we hear theories about, which race built the nether fortresses, who built these nether portals, the ruined nether portals, who built the end cities, who built the bastions, who built the ancient cities, was it an old race of builders, was it the Endermen? All of these questions are not just questions that exist on social media or outside of Minecraft. These are questions which you might ask yourself while you're actively playing the game. And that, in turn, will add on to your experience because you're going to ask those questions in game. You're going to look at these structures and you're going to wonder. And I think that's the beauty of Minecraft. And I think that's the beauty of the way that people discuss this game because it's so open-ended and it's so free that you could create whatever narrative you want. And for me, that narrative tends to be liminality and liminal spaces through Minecraft. So, on that note, that is all I wish to discuss, and I think it is a very interesting topic, and I think it's a topic which I'd like to touch on more in the future in regards to other games. But other than that, this was a fairly rambly and short video compared to my other ones. But if you've gotten here, thank you very much. I appreciate the support, and I hope to see you all again soon. Goodbye.